good evening, if you will. How are you doing? It's very late. I don't usually film this late. It's past 11 right now, well past my bedtime, but I accidentally clocked out for a couple hours around dinner time, so now I'm wide awake and I'm just gonna film this video. So if you're new here, hi, my name's Emma and I'm about to talk to you about all of the books that I read in January, all the books I read to kick it off this year. So I'm just gonna get started because there's one that I've been very excited to talk to someone about because I just think it's absolutely bonkers, and that is The Hotel by Sophie Calle. This is a work that I checked out from the library because I've been doing a lot of research on hotels recently. Okay, this woman is absolutely nuts. So if you open the hotel, it's quite pretty, very pretty, but it quickly becomes a collage of the things that people leave behind in their hotel rooms when they go to visit. So Sophie Calle took a job for 3 weeks in 1981 at a hotel in Venice, and she snuck into like her, I don't know, her towels, her cleaning trolley, her camera, and she went into people's rooms and she very sneakily took pictures of everything that they left behind, like their shoes, the inside of their suitcases, the state of the bed, and she kind of made little deductions or assumptions about the people who are in these rooms. You kind of get her opinion on the people who are staying in these rooms. Some pages she'll devote so many beautiful lines and like little interpretations of the people who are staying in the room if she finds them interesting, and then some people she just straight up dismisses because she's like, you know what, I'm bored. These people are boring. These people's detritus or leftovers that they just threw all about their room, it doesn't interest me. This book started as, I think, an art exhibit where she just showcased her photos. So now all the photos are of course bound up in this volume, but it definitely raises questions of security, privacy. No one knew that she was taking these pictures of very intimate things, of diary entries. She lists people's personal information, including like telephone numbers, sometimes last names, all of that stuff. She takes pictures of all of the postcards that they're collecting. Most of these people are tourists. Something really cool is that you do find that most of these people have something in common, if that's something that they've packed, the way that they've packed, and so there is definitely a pattern among people. Like a lot of them have the same guidebooks for Venice, a lot of them write the exact same thing in their postcards, so there's like kind of a creepy aspect to it there where like no one is really having an original experience. There's also the really cool fact that you do feel to an extent like if you saw these people on the street, you can maybe attach their belongings to them because there's so much character in the way that people inhabit a room, like when they're not in it, the way that they leave stuff on the table or what they choose to keep or throw out. It's just so interesting. It's kind of like a little Sherlock Holmes game in that aspect because she does make deductions as well about the kind of person that they are. And there were definitely some weird things that people left behind in the room. Someone took all the decor off of their wall, like there was a mirror and stuff, and they just took it down and put it in the drawer. That's really funny. That's kind of something I've done before. If I've stayed in a hotel room and I don't like the painting that's like staring at me, I will straight up take the painting down and put it away. This is probably the weirdest one. Someone has a rosary, oh my god, I can't say that word. A stethoscope, yes, a mask, a carnival mask, and a package of 3 syringes. Who are you? What are you doing? Someone else left a crab claw in their bed. Like she just found a crab claw, a straight up crab claw in someone's bed. I'm not here to kink shame, but guys, that is The Hotel. I think I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I do wish, no, I don't even wish there was more interpretation from the photographer side because I think like just having the photos alone, it just leads you into so many assumptions, so much consideration, and it was really cool. So really weird. Is this illegal? This is the last book that I read in January. This month we're just going completely out of order, and that is Binti by Nadia Okorafor. This was a gift from Michael. Thank you so much. This is a very short science fiction novella I have read previously from this author. Really enjoyed her stuff. Binti was a bit harder to bite into because there's not really a lot to bite into. I mean, your mouth only has to be that big. What am I saying? This is sci-fi where we follow the 16-year-old girl named Binti. She is from Earth. and her people, who are called the Himba people, don't leave. Like, that is their thing. They don't leave. They're born and they will die in the exact same place. It's just not done to like go off to university. However, that's exactly where Binti wants to go. She wants to go and kind of escape, go to university. She's very gifted. I believe she wants to study mathematics. So one night in the middle of the night, she just straight up leaves. She gets on a ship with a whole bunch of other students and they start making their journey to Unza University, which is obviously quite far away. The only other thing the synopsis says that I want to say is that in the middle of this journey, they do get visited by the Medus, who are a different species that the galaxy is kind of like, the other half of the galaxy is at war with. It so happens that like Binti and her contact with the Medus, who she's never met or seen before, is very important and will influence and change a lot of things and will alter both her life as well as the lives of others. Medio Core for sci-fis always look at something so much deeper about society. In Remote Control, the one that I read that was really excellently done in Binti, it more so examines like who is studying and who are the studied. It does deal a lot with academic privilege and especially the power that academic institutions wield over society, different groups of people, what they consider okay to study, how they consider something okay to study, like the method in which something is studied. It really looks a lot at different topics concerning universities, what they're doing, what academics are doing, what scholars are doing, that maybe isn't the greatest thing in the world ever, really, at all. So that's Binti. I give it 3.5 stars. I really liked it, but definitely very short. There is a sequel though. There actually is a sequel, so I might read that because I kind of want to see what happens next if there is more to the story. I read The Third Policeman by Flann O'Brien. This, oh no. This, what the hell do I say about this? This man murders someone because he wants this guy's money. We're set in Ireland. The man that we're following, he is very troubled, but he's also obsessed with this philosopher, and the reason that he has murdered this guy is because he wants to publish a book on this philosopher, and of course he doesn't really have enough money to do that, so he goes back to this dude's house to retrieve the money that him and his friend have like hidden under the floorboards. But then when he goes back to the house, things are very different. He doesn't know his name anymore, weird things are happening. The philosopher, De Selby, that he is studying is such a weird deal. Like, this book is filled with wild, wacky concepts from this philosopher. Stuff like, oh, I'm Emma, but because I touch the camera, I'm now like 40% camera. Or because of the way that light works, like the speed of light, when you look into a mirror, you're kind of seeing your younger self, technically. So if you keep stacking mirrors upon mirrors, you'll be able to look into the past, like a long time ago. So it deals with like wild, wacky concepts like that. I didn't love the writing style, I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't get into this. I don't think an audiobook was the way to go for this because it was quite hard. It was a really hard book, actually, I think. But maybe just because of the audiobook situation, I'm not sure. I might read this again in the future, but I think the thing that I liked most about it was its discussions of death and eternity. It starts with a quote that's pretty good to describe it. It ill becomes any man of sense to be concerned at the illusory approach of the supreme hallucination known as death. Kind of deals with like death as hallucination, which is really interesting, but didn't love it anywhere near as much as I love stuff like Beckett. He's compared a lot to Flann O'Brien, or I guess the other way around perhaps, but yeah. That is The Third Policeman. I still give it 3 stars, but definitely a lower 3-star in terms of enjoyment. Nice, fun, easy read that I read this month is Girl About Time by Kirsten Gier, but it's really supposed to be called Ruby Red. I think this is maybe a weird translation because the first book is called Ruby Red, but the trilogy is also called Ruby Red. I definitely liked this first book better than Kirsten Gier's other young adult series. Her other series focuses on dreams, and this one, I hate books that focus on dreams. I really do. It's just so not my thing. But this one focuses on time travel, which was more exciting, and it did some really cool, fun things with time travel that I haven't really seen in young adult books, but then again, I haven't read too many time travel stories. So we follow this girl who's in school. She kind of lives in this family mansion where all of her immediate and extended family live together. Like, it's just an absolute nightmare. There's a lot of gaslighting, gatekeeping, minimal girl bossing in this mansion. Everyone is keeping kind of secrets from each other because there's definitely a hierarchy in the family. Some of these family members have the gene of time traveling, and so if you're born with the gene, you can of course time travel, and the way that it happens to you is like set down in a rule book, kind of how far you'll travel back the first time, where you'll go, maybe how you'll be feeling. So Gwyneth like lives her whole life being like, I don't have the gene. Her cousin is supposed to have it, and so her cousin has been let in on the secret of time traveling, what to expect, and she's been the one who's been prepped and trained. I think is at 16, they find out that it's accidentally Gwyneth. She has the time traveling gene, and she has been obviously not prepared at all. Definitely a chosen one story, a lot of the tropes. This is very early YA, but it was still pretty fun. There's a whole secret society that we get to delve into, really toxic family relationships, which I really enjoyed. Some people just kind of get what they have coming to them, and then she does get paired up with this guy named, it's on the tip of my tongue, Gideon. His name's Gideon, and he kind of becomes her partner to introduce her to the world of time traveling. And then they do get sucked into, of course, a bigger conspiracy. Really cool. I actually really liked it. I think I might continue the series because there are a lot of really interesting things. I kind of knew what was happening in a lot of parts, and I'm like, okay, very cool. Yeah, I think if you like Prisoner of Azkaban time travel style, you'll like this. I think, yeah, I don't know, I still think Prisoner of Azkaban does time travel so well. But also I really appreciated how, like, okay, as soon as she finds out she can time travel, she immediately has to start classes of like, let me learn history, let me learn what is safe, let me learn what to do in certain time periods, how people talk, so that when I get teleported or transported back to these times, I'm not a complete useless idiot who's likely to get like thrown in jail or kidnapped or thrown in an asylum or anything like that. Like, they really take it seriously. You need proper dress wear, you need to know where you're going, you need to know the political situation. So really cool. I really appreciate that because it is riddled with like little facts and stuff. So that is Ruby Red. So I gave that one, I think, a solid 3.5 again. This one is so heavy, but it is contemporary hotel design. I did read this whole thing, and I had fantastic time. This is a book that is pretty much all just huge photography. It's just a huge photography book of different hotels from all around the world. Yeah, it focuses on a lot of different things. Like, I'm just obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed with this one. He just kind of goes over like different design features of hotels. It's a little bit dated, I will say, because this is from, I think, the early 2000s again, but he investigates the latest and newest hotels, discovers the unusual, and finds what is really worth seeing and visiting. I didn't really read this for a travel purpose at all, because most of these hotels are like very extravagant and expensive and totally out of my price range. I just really wanted a good visual representation of different hotels, get like an idea, because I'm just doing a lot of research on hotels right now. So, and I just found it fascinating. I love looking at hotels no matter what. Can I show you my favorite? I don't know if I'd necessarily like to visit this one, but I loved the look of the Millennium Hilton Bangkok in Thailand. I just think it's so, like, the vibe. I just think, oh, I don't know. I just really love the lighting. Like, I think it's really just the lighting that does it for me. Yes, this one. It's this one for me. I don't know why. I'm just like, I want to be in there. It looks like a Hitman level. I'm obsessed with that. Like, I'm just so obsessed with the muted lighting. I just think it's visually stunning. I like how the bar looks, and I really like the outdoor. Oh, I really like the outdoor. Sorry, I'm just really showing you my interest right now. Yes, my other favorite was the Six Senses Hideaway in Yau Noi, which is also in Thailand. Maybe I should just go to Thailand. But look how stunning. Completely different from the first one in Bangkok, but stunning. Stunning. Before I show you pictures of every single hotel in this book, that is contemporary hotel design, and it's by Joachim Fischer. So I don't know what these wrap-ups have become. January for me was really the month for nonfiction. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I read 5 nonfiction books this month. That's insane for me. I usually read 1, if that, but this month I just was really leaning towards nonfiction. The next one I picked up was In the Dream House. Oh, I totally forgot to say thank you so much. This was a gift from Sabine. Thank you. This one was a gift from Molly. Wow. Okay, so I've been wanting to read In the Dream House for a few years. I didn't really ever feel ready to pick it up because this is a memoir. I don't typically read memoirs. I typically really don't like them, but In the Dream House is done in such an interesting, fantastic way that I just had to pick it up. So In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. It has a beautiful structure of figuring her abusive relationship with her girlfriend at the time as different tropes, as different conventions, as different phenomena. We have Dream House as epiphany, Dream House as legacy, Dream House as appetite, Dream House as American Gothic. I will say I wasn't a huge fan of her writing, but conceptually I think what she does in the Dream House is so fantastic. One of the main reasons for writing this is that she says, like, obviously there's this huge misconception that there can't be any woman-on-woman violence in relationships. That is just not a thing. That like domestic abuse in a sapphic lens isn't ever hardly talked about, much less considered like, oh, that can happen. And she provides like tons of case studies. I just love the quote that it starts with. You pile up associations the way you pile up bricks. Memory itself is a form of architecture. The prologue talks about the violence of the archive, which is also called archival silence, that sometimes stories are destroyed and sometimes they are never uttered in the first place. Either way, something very large is irrevocably missing from our collective histories. This is meant to share her story but also fill in those gaps. Really solid, but also obviously very hard to read. I definitely had to put this down a few times. A very short work that I read this month was just the first work in this Borges collection, and that work was The Universal History of Iniquity. So this is about, it's like 70 pages of Borges kind of playing around with different figures from history who've done terrible, nasty things, and then giving us a little biography about them in various styles, and it's just like a fun little exercise. That's very much what it felt like. It was a fun little exercise. So he says of his first work that gallows and pirates fill its pages, and that word iniquity strikes awe in its title, but under all the storm and lightning there is nothing. It is all just appearance, a surface of images. The way that he would write just felt very appealing, a little bit intoxicating. It was very ticklish. That's how I described it, and I mean by that, like, something comes out of nowhere and he like uses a certain word or describes something a certain way and you just kind of go like, ooh, like I really like that. Very cool. And I did also learn a lot because he does talk a lot about history and different people who did nasty things. It definitely felt like someone writing a piece for like their creative writing class, so I did enjoy it, but nothing like super amazing that I would write home about. So again, 3.5 stars. I just had a pretty solid reading month where like I didn't hate anything I read, and there were a few that I really loved. Another nonfiction that I got through was The Anatomy of Anxiety by Ellen Vora. This one I'll just talk briefly about. This one is just about anxiety in our modern lives. It touches on COVID. It does have a COVID section, which was really interesting. I really appreciated that. I think it is a book if I had physically I would just skim through and not listen to the whole thing the whole way through, because obviously some sections didn't apply to me at all. It was less about like treatment techniques. This one was more about the mind-body connection, and especially the gut connection to anxiety, which was definitely very valuable. And this book really influenced me in a positive way this month because I've just been eating so much better, and I definitely did follow a few tips from this book that would have been quite helpful. I only have 2 more books to talk about here. This one is another nonfiction. So this probably isn't my favorite nonfiction I read this month. It might be. Yeah, this is The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Sequel in Many Lands by Mary Sequel. This is my around the world pick for Jamaica. I actually heard of this one and bought it because it was on one of the syllabi at my university and it sounded really interesting. So this is Mary Sequel's like account of her time, of her adventures really, all over the place. We range from obviously Jamaica to Panama to London to the Crimea, which is mostly what this account contains, because Mary Sequel is very famous, but probably not famous enough at all for her work in the Crimean War, because she set out all by herself to the Crimea when she was rejected by like the War Office, rejected by Florence Nightingale and her nurses, rejected by like everyone. She's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go anyway, like no one is gonna stop me. I have stuff to offer, I want to see the world, I want an experience of war, and I want to be of help to the soldiers. And so she went over by herself, opened up a hotel, and treated so many different people. She was under fire a lot, she got very close to the battlefield. She's just amazing. To talk about the book, amazing. The writing style, so engaging, so funny. She's just so good and so like very purposeful what she includes and doesn't include. I'm assuming that the class that had this on its syllabus was going to look at like, okay, the way that she has to represent herself, the way that she has to represent herself as motherly. Everyone calls her Mother Seacole, or all of the British soldiers that she cares for just call her mom. She just kind of has to really, really present herself as like this harmless motherly figure, both because of obviously the time period, racism, what women can do in a war or conflict situation or political situation. Very, very interesting to look at it from that angle, but also just to like read her words, read her life. Fascinating. She has such an interesting life, and like she's so cool. Oh my god, she's so cool. She's kind of like a role model. I didn't know I was gonna find a new role model when I picked this up, or maybe I did, because she's like so cool. She's so cool. She really reminds me of my grandma. A lot of the times, like the way that she would talk, the way that her humor is, the way that she would describe something, they share so much of the same personality. So stubborn, like so stubborn. There's something they want to do, like they will just do it no matter what, even if it's like the smallest thing. But also so caring, like so much going just out of their way to make sure people are okay, whether that's like literally venturing into a war zone, or like my grandma, who would just make the rounds at a nursing home just because she wanted to talk to everyone, make sure they're all right, like see if there's anything she could literally do. My grandma always wanted to be a nurse. If she ever had the opportunity to go to school, she would have been a nurse, is what she always says. So yeah, it was just so many things. I was just reading this and I just felt like I was sometimes listening to my grandma. Her very no nonsense, but also like so caring. Very hard exterior sometimes, but like so mushy gushy on the middle, and so funny. So funny. It was just bizarre. So grandma, grandma, if you're watching this, I might bring this book home for you. I might bring this book home for you when I next visit, and you should read it because I think you would really see a lot of yourself in it. So it was just really nice. I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but very, very good. Highly recommend. That's that one. What the hell's happening? And then if I wasn't already getting emotional enough, I'm gonna try not to talk about this for too long. A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I do have a whole vlog coming about this, and Carolyn and I will be having our first Game of Tomes live show at the end of February talking about this and Once There Was a War by John Steinbeck. But you guys know that I love this. This was the highlight of the month for me. This book destroyed me, like it still destroyed me. And not in the way that I was really connected to or affected by the characters, because I didn't really care about hardly anyone in this book, but that's not really the point, because I just really appreciated but was also devastated by Hemingway's writing and craft, particularly in this one, because I read A Movable Feast and The Sun Also Rises, and his style of being so blunt and of telling the truth hadn't affected me as hard as it did in A Farewell to Arms, because this deals with World War I and a love story that's going on in World War I between our protagonist Henry and a nurse that he meets in Italy. He's an American who begins to work for the Italian army because he's in Italy when the war begins and he speaks Italian. It's very autobiographical to some extent of Hemingway's experience during the First World War, because he was also an ambulance driver in the Italian army and he also fell in love with a nurse, so a lot of it is his own experience. But the way that Hemingway is like, you know what, I'm gonna show you life, I'm just gonna show it to you. I didn't think I was gonna appreciate it as much as I did. I didn't think I was gonna be affected by it as much as I was, but it just really felt so real, so raw, particularly the ending, so much so the ending. Like, I was just stunned. Like, I don't think I've ever read the last sentence and been like, I'm not going to be able to emotionally function for the next couple of weeks. Like, that's how much it affected me. I'm gonna try to articulate it much better in the live show because I'm still reeling from it. A lot of this book, you can say it is kind of dull. His description of so much is just like, can we kind of pick up the pace a little bit? Like I said, I never really cared about the relationship between Catherine and Henry. It just wasn't really my thing. I found a lot of it a little bit disconcerting. Some of it kind of sweet, but like none of that really mattered next to the craft of like Hemingway being like, okay, here it is. Here's life. I'm not gonna put any metaphors, I'm not gonna fool around with any symbolism or any deeper meaning. I'm just gonna put it on the page, and the ending just absolutely solidifies the whole thing. Like there's a cement wall at the end of this book that you run into. Face first, heart first, I guess heart first in this case. You're kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Where am I supposed to put that? How am I supposed to deal with that? 4.5 stars, maybe 5 now that I'm thinking about it, because it just hits you so hard. I really loved his prose because I just found it so easy to read, like so addictive. I've never been able to get to the bottom of this addictive quality, but I think it's because it's just like injecting life right into my veins. Like someone's experience made into a novel, and with Hemingway, like that's just something completely new that I haven't really come across with anyone else, and I really appreciated it. So that is that. My throat is so dry, so I'm gonna stop talking, but that is my reading lineup for this month. Really loved it. I did have a really great month, and still thinking about Hemingway, so I'm going to leave it there. That was my favorite book of the month, was A Farewell to Arms. Please let me know what your favorite book was. It's currently 11:48. I'm gonna see if I can just get this video edited for tomorrow morning for you. So you're gonna see this video in like how many hours? In like 10 or 11 hours. Feeling a bit like it's gonna be a little bit of a sleepless night tonight because I had a big nap today. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day or night, whatever time it is. Ciao.